Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. Very excited for today's show. We have the Good Liars, Jason Selvig and Davram Stiefler. But first, let me thank you for tuning in today. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com, and we'll read a few next time. So the Good Liars, Jason and Davram, they have years of political comedy experience and have cultivated a large audience with their unique brand of pranks and interviews. On their popular social media pages, they have garnered well over 500 million views. In their election comedy, Undecided, the movie, which is a really brilliantly funny movie I recently saw, they pranked every presidential candidate. The rap called Undecided a gem, and it may be the funniest movie you haven't seen yet. They filmed at major events, including Washington, D.C. on January 6th, CPAC, the Republican National Convention, the Iowa Caucus, QAnon Conferences, the March for Life, and of course, a lot of Trump rallies, and recently the 2023 NRA Conference. All right, the Good Liars, Jason and Davram, welcome into the back room.
Thanks for having us here.
I am a big fan of your work, of your body of work. I love it. And so I want to start with, who are you guys? Take me back to childhood. Did you know each other as kids?
I guess when we became young, when we were young adults, we met each other. And I think our friendship at first was just based on playing basketball together. We played basketball together in pickup games around the city for, I don't know, a couple years, and maybe filmed like one or two like comedy sketches together and performed at some of the same shows. Davram was performing at some of the shows that one of my good friends, John Anderson, was performing at, and we met from there. So it started with basketball, really. And on the basketball court, maybe is where we learned our chemistry, or lack thereof. I'm not sure. So, and then it moved. And then in 2011, we did our first video together that was like in the real world, which was at Occupy Wall Street.
Right. Occupy Wall Street.
That's right. Yeah, we got thrift store suits, went down there, and people thought it was real, and that was kind of the beginning of this comedy in the real world.
Where did each of you guys grow up? What was your family like? Are you from a family of liberals, Republicans? Like, were you always interested in this kind of stuff?
I grew up in Western Colorado, but my parents, my dad was from Denver, my mom was born in Morocco, and they ended up meeting in Paris. Moved to Grand Junction, Colorado, that famously now Lauren Boebert's district. And my parents are a little bit conservative, but which I didn't realize growing up. But spending a few years in the New York comedy scene and getting to know Jason and finding our way into the stuff we did, my views kind of crystallized a little bit. So definitely different views in the family there, which make this all.
But Davram, you missed the most important part.
What?
Davram, you were high school sweethearts with Lauren Boebert. You guys went to prom together.
I did. I found that in my research. There's some photos. I'm not going to publish them because they're really embarrassing.
No, come on, publish them.
But she's holding your AR-15, and I don't want to go there. It's a little creepy.
Yeah. That was my gift to her.
And
yeah,
were you
an open carry prom?
Right.
And were you always into the comedic thing, performing when you were 9 years old? Were you like little Rupert Pupkin dreaming of being on set one day?
I did some speech and debate stuff in high school, which the first couple of years of high school. So I did like comedic interpretation, where you basically just kind of, do a monologue. And I got pretty far in that, but I would say by, junior year of high school, I'd given up on all that, was into a sports thing. Went to college and then didn't get back into it until I was in New York and was right next to a comedy club that was called Rafifi. Now is like a Buffalo Exchange.
Did you say Kofifi?
Rofifi. Oh, Rafifi. But Kofifi would have been amazing.
That would have been amazing.
For the time. Yeah. But I was just hanging out around there and all these, these amazing comedians, and then just got a restaurant job. And I think we thought I was going to try my hand at this for a little bit, see how it went, but that was, over a decade ago. So.
And Jason, what would really make this part of the interview crazy is if you told me you grew up in Georgia in Marjorie Taylor Greene's county.
Well, close actually. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, near Mitch McConnell. So there we go. There's some. Yeah, I grew up in Louisville and then moved to Florida when I was about 15. And my dad was my principal at my school. He was principal at my school, of the high school of the school I was at, for my entire life. And then moving to Florida, he was my principal there.
That sounds
And it
either
was in Florida where I.
that sounds either great or horrifying.
Well, you know what? It was like kind of like what I knew through my whole life. So it never felt like weird to me until I moved to Florida, when because I had my identity as who I was at this school because I'd been there for so long in Louisville. When I moved to Florida, I was I'm in high school. I moved to a new place. I know literally no one, and I am just the principal's kid when I moved.
Didn't
there.
you refuse to
That
stand for
became-
the anthem? Wasn't that part of your experience? And your dad was the principal?
I'm
No,
sure,
I
sure
don't
he
know.
loved
I would
that.
no. I actually refused to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance
Right,
at school
right.
assembly, and my dad was like,
On what
I was
grounds?
on,
I was
bud.
really into like
Um,
punk hardcore music. And,
on what
I didn't
grounds
know
did you
really,
refuse?
Like, why?
You didn't know why. You just
Because I'm not. No piece of flag's gonna tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
No piece of cloth is gonna tell me what to do. I'm my own man. I really don't
Wasn't
even
the
know.
God
I mean,
at all?
it wasn't the God part. It wasn't. It was the. It had something to do with like how I thought I felt politically about something, but I really had no opinions probably at that point. But I ended up my like way into this world kind of was like I started getting into like theater and acting at the time, and ended up going to college for it. And so then when I moved to New York, I was doing comedy and auditions, for TV shows and stuff like that. And then this kind of happened like in the middle of that. Like kind of became my focus, and things were like kind of going pretty good too. I was like having a lot of screen tests for like sitcoms and things like that. And then we started doing this crazy thing, which was much more fulfilling, not filling of my wallet, but fulfilling like artistically, I guess.
right.
So we've been kind of doing that ever since we did that first video at Occupy Wall Street.
And
On and off. I mean, it wasn't like a full-time job at that point, but
your own politics. I don't want to ask what might seem to be a dumb question, but you guys are a couple of liberals.
are you reading our comments? Yeah. Where did you get this information? How are you getting in my DMs? That's crazy.
So am I correct in assuming you guys are pretty strong liberal, progressive types?
I mean, I would say I definitely lean left, and I've leaned farther since 2016, but I'm not like I'm not beating the drum for the Democratic Party. I've never felt that want to be like or both of us being like a megaphone for the Democratic Party. I do think that there was like a
we
lesser of two
definitely like
evils.
a lesser of two evils kind of thing. And then when we really started doing this more full time in the lead up to the 2016 election, I think we went at it like, let's give everybody a hard time and create funny moments with candidates on both sides. But just as the years have gone on, it's just been, that lesser of two evils thing. Like, okay, we're picking who we're going to go talk to and what there is to make fun of and call out. It seems to be quite a bit more on one side than the other.
Right. And so my next question, I pose this as a Jew myself, sitting in a studio with two fellow Jews. Davram, you are Jewish, right? So,
That's right.
So you are the Soros-backed liar, if I may say that.
Right. Well, I share the money.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want to ask you. And I want you guys to be honest.
I get the Bezos bucks.
Like, how
so
much is
I don't
George
know.
paying you guys to do this?
George, if you're listening, pay us.
If you're
we will
listening,
gladly
yeah.
take the money.
What do you make of this whole Soros-backed thing? It's like when I was a kid and like someone wanted to make fun of me, they'd call me a dirty kike or something. But like today, you don't need to say kike. All you just say is Soros-backed. And it's the same thing.
It's as if other billionaires don't try and get people elected. It's just like an excuse to say a slur.
So where did the Good Liars name come from?
The Good Liars name came from, we were trying to think of a name for the show when we were pitching a show, when we kind of like in the first year of us being together. And we kind of like we came up with a couple ones that we weren't really happy about. And then I was watching a movie. It was the night Whitney Houston died. I remember that. It really has nothing to do with the story, except for I remember
Don't we
that.
all?
And there was a movie called Safe House with Denzel Washington and Ryan Reynolds, which is not a memorable movie. But I saw it in the theater, and there was a line in it where he says, like, "You're a good liar," or something, like, not saying any like double meaning to it, just like saying you're a good liar. And I thought, oh, that there was like a double meaning to that could work for us, because the whole plan, we were, at the time, it was more like we were pretending to be people we weren't, and going in and like kind of saying the quiet part loud of a lot of people, like we did at Occupy Wall Street and some of the other things we did at the time. And I was like, oh, that works. And it's so simple that, and it kind of says it, and there's like a double meaning to it. So you can thank Safe House, the movie Safe House.
I wasn't
we all have that iconic.
I wasn't expecting to hear
with
Denzel
Safe
Washington
House.
as the reason.
I don't remember anything about that movie really, except for Whitney Houston dying, learning about it right before, and that one line, which I think is in an actual safe house at the time.
Yeah,
so.
it's a great name. Yeah, you guys picked a good one. And so you mentioned Occupy Wall Street, and you also did some stuff like with Church of Scientology, and it was more corporate-y, businessy. When did the shift come, or is that an obvious question? Was it 2015 and 16 with the Trump craziness, which I guess was like handed to you on a silver platter? Is that when the shift to more political stuff occurred?
I think, right, Jason? I mean, we set out to go to a Donald Trump rally. We thought this guy was going to be out quickly, as most people did. And we couldn't believe anybody, cared and was showing up to these things. We had some plan. I forget exactly what it was. We're in the front row at this rally, and we started to get really bored. We started to really genuinely get really bored. We waited in line. We'd seen speakers come up. We saw, him come up, and he started droning on about like everything that, the same speech we'd seen on TV a few times. And so we started yelling at him that he was boring. And then that video kind of happened. And that was at the very beginning of 2016, right? Or January, Jason?
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, this the longer he stayed alive in the campaign, and of course, eventually, became the president, there was no reason to quit.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You remember that? Yeah. It seems a little bit of trivia there.
Yeah.
And so we continued in that campaign, and ended up coming out with a movie that we got out a couple weeks before the election, and just assuming that he was going to lose. In fact, up to the point of going to Trump Tower on election night, thinking we were going to get a chance to call him a loser when he walked by. And then it was like,
he fooled you, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
The joke was on us.
Yeah.
The joke was on us.
A couple other people. So it slowly dawned on us that the joke was on us at the Trump Tower bar, and we left. But yeah, I think over the course of those few months, it like kind of, became clear that this is what people cared about, what we cared about. And there was just kind of endless fodder there, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And I have a few. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
No, I was just going to say it was like a way, like, with anything, with anybody who's like going out either in comedy or art or whatever, movies. It's like kind of like finding our identity in things and starting out. And I think at starting out, we had some ideas of how we felt about things, but they weren't crystal clear. And there was like a feeling out period where we were going out and just seeing what works. And I think that's the only reason we've had any success is just we've been willing to go and do stuff and try different things.
Right. Well, it's like anything else.
But I will say we still go to Church of Scientology, try and film there once every couple of years.
Well, yeah.
The same people are always there. It's actually gotten sadder as years.
Are you like on a watch list in certain places by now? Like they're like, oh, there's those two guys again.
Yeah. Right. We know you guys, and then we always pretend we know them back. Hey, Marcus, how's it going?
So I got a few process questions I want to ask you. Is there any official delegation of duties between you guys that we don't see at home when we watch your videos? Like who has to hold the camera on this rally interview, or who has to ask the questions, or anything like that?
Well, it depends on the time, I guess this we went to the NRA this year, and last year I did a speech, and Davram hadn't done a speech, so it was a quiet understanding between the two of us that Davram was going to be the guy to go up there this year. So we're even Steven on that.
Not to mention you were pretty
I was
immediately
followed.
recognized.
Yeah, I was followed when I walked in the room. So that would have been tough for me to get up there anyway. But I don't know, as far as process, I mean, we try and work together on stuff and like have some, I mean, it's pretty even, I think, when we go out for the most part, like save a couple trips where one of us does more than the other or something like that.
I think whenever we're on camera together, we kind of fall into these roles we've developed and kind of have played in our movies, different versions of, like Jason being the high status guy who's actually got a lot of problems, and me being the guy who, is like really wants to connect with everyone, but it's kind of sad somewhere in there. And like in both of our films, and I think when we interact with people, there's like this back and forth that we can kind of create some funny situations and throw people off and get them to respond in interesting ways. I think we have found that, but the fact that we go to these things and do a lot of interviews one-on-one means that we just have to create the comedy with ourselves and our interview subject usually.
And how big is the Good Liars team? Is like, again, we only see you two guys on camera, but is there, other people that travel with you?
It depends. Like we've done some movies and we've done some shoots, and I would say like the building of the Good Liars, a lot of times we go on now, it will be just two of us sometimes. But there's also like guys that we've worked with, and I say guys, but men that we worked with that have shot for us for years. Peter Barr, Peter Richardson, Charlotte Kaufman, like people who are really talented who have helped us throughout the years. And so it really depends. And it depends also on like what we're going out to do. Like if you go out, like some of the pranks we were doing for the movies, you need more than one person. You can't just have like a cell phone and film them, because it's a little tougher to, especially when they are high stakes things. You want to make sure you get it right, because the candidates don't usually let you do a second take.
Right. Hey, embarrass the shit out of me again. Yeah, I would imagine that you don't get that opportunity. And what is the turnaround time?
We've tried.
I'm sure you have.
We've done it. We remember that day. It's a long time ago. I got on stage with Ted Cruz, and then later that day, we went to another Ted Cruz rally, and they stopped us at the door, and we had fake glasses on. We were like, no, we saw those guys earlier. They weren't wearing glasses, though.
Yeah.
Totally different guys.
Totally different guys.
So
we
tried.
What's your turnaround time to shoot, edit, post? Is it really tight?
Well, usually the next day something comes out, and then it's like over the course of the next like week or 10 days or 2 weeks, even if we're not traveling yet, especially that a few more will come out. But definitely something timely. Usually some editing in a hotel room or airplane, and even if it needs to come out later that day, it does sometimes, but usually the next day, a video or two.
Because I have this image of you guys racing back in your rental car to a Motel 6 with a pizza and sitting till like 2:00 in the morning, editing and posting and getting it done. Am I way off, or is that kind of?
No, that actually is pretty accurate. Sometimes I try not a Motel 6, like maybe a Hampton Inn, someplace that has a free breakfast.
They've got free breakfast. Yeah. Waffles you make yourself. That's pretty important.
No, I was gonna say, because like sometimes free breakfast just means that continental breakfast with like a box.
It's not
box
good.
Of special K cereal.
This is not. Which actually, that's all I really want is a couple boxes of cereal in the morning. Wake up but the problem, and this is going to be kind of I'm going to turn off the highway here for a second. The problem with these places is the coffee isn't very good. So you wake up in the morning,
still have
and
to
it's just
stop
water
somewhere.
and coffee. Exactly. If they had a nice cup of coffee, I'd be totally happy with just having a couple boxes.
How
Hampton Inn and Suites, if you are listening.
How hard is it to have good coffee? Should this really be a problem in 2023?
It seems nearly impossible at every one of these places. That's the thing, right?
Well, I think it's a caffeine thing. I got fired 2 days after I started this job, but it was like waiting tables at it was like a retirement community place that had like a fancy restaurant in it. And they said, they're like, there's 2 things of coffee, and one of them's orange for decaf and one of them's regular, but they both were decaf because like they don't want the older people to have too much caffeine because it can be really bad for their heart. So I think it's just they don't want to do that because they don't want somebody to like drop dead or something like that.
I always judge free breakfast. Like if bacon is part of the package, then it's good. If there's no bacon involved, then it's not a worthwhile free breakfast.
Depends on the place, though.
Fair.
Depends on
Yeah.
sometimes it's very rubbery. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I'm kind of talking myself out of this Hampton Inn thing now. The more I talk about it, so.
I mean, as much as I could sit here and talk to you guys about free breakfasts and cheap motels, we have to move on. How do you choose where to go?
It depends. I mean, sometimes people send us suggestions like, "Oh, this is happening here in my town or whatever." And a lot of the times, I mean, candidly, like a lot of the stuff is at a Trump rally, and
Right.
you see where they are
CPAC
and
or something
whatever.
like that, right?
Right.
Yeah, Trump rally, CPAC, like the NRA, and then when these campaigns are starting to ramp up, there are these random campaign events. So like, Jason gave Herschel Walker a roll of condoms at a little speech there. Like those things are just like, all right, these people are out and about, let's go. And then sometimes it's not like we've been out like every other weekend recently, so it's not like which event so much as like, okay, that's a weekend we can go. Let's pick what's happening, like what's the most appealing, and we're there.
And when you go to a Trump rally, are you looking for a specific type? Are you looking for the craziest, with like the hat and the jacket and all that crap? Or are you trying to find like the sane Trumpster in this crowd? And let's see if we can talk to that person and get some logic out of them.
I think the book, like you can't judge a book by its cover, is true with this, because sometimes we'll talk to somebody who is dressed up in all Trump stuff with like a Trump suit on with his face on it, and they'll be the more reasonable than like somebody that looks like they could have been like my third grade teacher. And then that person will be like, JFK Jr. is alive and Fauci was killed 5 years ago and they're all in Guantanamo. You're like, oh my gosh, this is totally out there stuff. And then the person with the Trump stuff suit on is like, I think we should have lower taxes. And you're like, okay, well, that's not the craziest thing in the world.
Wow,
but
that's
you dress
nuts.
Crazy. Yeah, so it's really like you never know. Yeah.
And you get
all right,
shocked.
yeah.
Like if you're talking to somebody and they say like, I'm concerned about term limits. Do you look at each other and go like, what the fuck? Seriously, term limits?
A little, yeah. Remember that guy in Georgia? And everyone was so out there. This was a while ago, but he just stopped and he just really was telling us about term limits. And it was a long conversation. We turned and walked away. And we're like, I don't disagree with anything that guy said.
God, I would have that checked out, Davram. You might be becoming a maggot or whatever they're called.
Yeah. We'll see. If you're not by the time you're older, then you're stupid. What's the saying? But I think that's
if you're a liberal, if you're not a liberal when you're younger, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative when you're older, you have no brain. That is.
But I don't think they knew about the modern state of conservatives.
No.
When they wrote that.
You're not a fascist when you're older.
Right.
You have no brain. Yeah.
What percentage of the people you talk to are pretty crazy in the sense that we see at home when we watch your videos?
40%.
What percent?
Oh, okay. I was going to say 35. I mean,
okay.
I think it's. I mean, when you're looking at the stuff, it's like the sample audience. Like, I don't think it's representative of obviously like all Republicans in the country or people who identify as conservative or anything like that, or even people that support Donald Trump, because they're the people that would go to a campaign rally. Now, for Donald Trump, he gets a lot of people. Like, there's 20,000 people that go to these things. Right. So like the sample audience is smaller. So you'd think that the people that really think JFK Jr. is there, they're going to show up there because they really think this stuff's happening. But then also some of the people are just people that live in the town there. And, it's usually in a smaller town, not like super close to a city. So they're like, oh, this is an event for presidents here. I want to go see this.
But I would think like 40% is high though. Like I think there are some people who just live nearby and it's like a rock concert came to town and they're in a conservative area. But like, I would say like 40% of the people say something that is really out there or like, it's the QAnon stuff.
I guess that's fair. I was thinking just QAnon stuff, but yeah, people will say like the guy was like 100,000 people died from drag shows. Like he wasn't a QAnon, but that was like a really out there thing to say.
When you're talking about any large group of people and saying like 40% of them will say something that will kind of blow your mind or be really terrible or really, insane.
You guys have moments when you're back at the Motel 6 and watching the footage and just look at each other and go, my God, that dude was just fucking insane. Like, are you shocked anymore by what you hear?
Sometimes, but we have had these
Sometimes.
moments where someone will be like, JFK Jr. is alive. And then you'll be like, okay. And then what else? And it's like, no, wait, that was just said. We
Yeah,
gotta dig a little deeper here, but I like watched myself hear something that, a few years ago would have been totally out of the realm of possibility. And now it's like just passes right by. So trying not to let that happen, not to get numb to it, is like an effort in and of itself, because we've heard this stuff so many times.
Yeah, I remember when Davram was interviewing some guy, and he said something like, and Fauci was killed just last week in Guantanamo. And then Davram's like, so tell us about Ukraine. And I was like, because he's heard it so many times. It's like, that's
normalized.
Not the craziest thing. Like,
by the way, you guys,
Biden's not the real president. Okay, tell us some other issues that you think about.
So you have a baseline. You have a baseline that you just know is happening. By the way, you mentioned JFK Jr. now like 3 times. Are you actually saying he's not dead?
Oh no, he's not dead. He's alive. He's very much alive and well. He's living in Pittsburgh. He's assumed the identity of what's his name? Vincent Fusca.
Vincent Fusca. Yeah, that's who apparently he is. And the camera wasn't rolling at this moment, but we asked him, and he kind of like said yes and nodded that he's JFK Jr. So I know
people who don't know. People don't know this is a guy that some of the QAnon believers think is JFK Jr. And he's really like an accountant in Pittsburgh who just like decked his car out in MAGA stuff in 2016 and has gone to like every Trump rally. And some people think that he is actually JFK Jr., which is like the most bizarre theory out there to me, because it's like this JFK Jr. is just like driving in a van to Trump rallies now, like with it.
And this is how he chose to reveal himself, was just by like.
I mean, think about it.
Putting on a fedora.
Think about it logically.
Yeah.
JFK Jr. had this, life living in Tribeca with a beautiful wife, a great magazine that was launching, but he just secretly wanted to drive a van and live in Pittsburgh and be an accountant.
Exactly.
I mean, it makes sense.
That's the American dream.
Lose about 8 inches of height and start wearing a fedora everywhere. And he's like a revered figure at these things. So it changed from just he manages to show up early and stand near Trump. And now they're like, he's on all these like little tour buses that are part of these stops, and he's at CPAC, and he's like, people like revere him. And I think he just kind of smiles like, maybe I am, maybe I'm not.
But I'm not saying if I'm not,
Yeah.
But okay, so the obvious question, because this one thing of all the Q, all the Trump, all the MAGA things, all the shit that's out there, the thing that I find the craziest is this JFK Jr. thing. Where did it come from? Why JFK Jr.?
Well, so like the QAnon, the whole Q thing, which is like incredibly dumb to begin with, there were people that would like interpret some of the things that he says in his like cryptic messages that he would drop on this message board that was full of porn and anti-Semitic memes. He would put these messages out, and then people underneath it would speculate, who is this? Who could it be? And then somebody started speculating maybe it was JFK Jr. And they listed all these clues. So it was never QAnon that said it was. It was just the people that followed him. And then it just snowballed into them making these signs. And then like somebody being like, it is JFK Jr. and he's actually the vice president now. It's going to be announced like that Pence is leaving. And then when that never happened, after Trump lost, they were like, he's actually still the vice president. And John F. Kennedy Sr. is the president, was another one, which is like,
oddly enough, though, it's kind of a similar group of people who said that Hillary Clinton had him killed in a plane crash. And then I think
Marjorie Taylor Greene. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene who said that. Yeah.
But because I guess he was going to challenge her for the Senate seat in New York, and then mysteriously disappeared. And then I think it was very, very thrilling to think that, like, what if he was actually still alive, had faked it, and is like back for revenge? And it's really, really dumb.
Have you guys ever been physically threatened, like Anyone ever throw a punch? I mean, the
Throw a
MAGAs seem
punch,
like
throw a
they're
punch.
crazy, but they also seem like kind of an affable bunch when you interview them. Like, almost as if they don't know you're
Depends.
mocking the shit out of them. Because if they did, it seems like they would throw a punch, maybe.
You got a punch thrown at you a little bit during the Tom Steyer event of all
Oh,
things. The guy,
Tom Steyer of all people,
Yeah.
interrupted him, and this was like the silliest prank maybe we've ever done. It's one of my favorites, where like Tom Steyer's giving a speech on stage, and DeVram comes in and is like,
So funny.
Tom Steyer hit me with a car, and I don't know what to do. And then I get up and say, "Has this ever happened to you?" And it turns into like a lawyer commercial inside there. And then I go up to Tom Steyer and I'm like, "Hey, let's cut a deal here. Like, give me $1 billion or $1 million or 2 million or whatever." And then one of the guys gets up and like tries to punch me in the stomach. One of the people who was just like an attendee of the event.
we had a theory that they had paid some people to fill up the seats, and it was just the guy knew you were like doing something wrong, but I don't think he was like a Steyer head, you know?
No, he definitely wasn't.
That was a funny bit. I watched your film Undecided last night, and I cracked up the whole time. When I saw you walk into that room disheveled and saying you got hit in the parking lot, I mean, that was a real laugh out loud kind of moment. Do you have a favorite video that you've done, or two, or three?
Oh man, there's a few. I love that one, but we've already talked through it. But I love that it the way it puts everyone on the spot, and it just you would never see it coming. And I like the ones that are a little more for comedy for comedy's sake, like that. But I don't know, Jason, what comes to mind?
One of my favorite was when DeVram accused Marco Rubio of stealing his girlfriend. Again, it was just another one.
Twice.
That's like,
Twice.
I know it's messed
Oh
up.
yeah,
That's a lie.
the
That's
Super
a
Bowl
lie.
party. I forgot about
His
that.
reactions,
he-
by the way, were classic. Like, he was just like, what is happening here?
He was one of the candidates that we saw a couple times. I've never heard him speak. I was like, he seems like a nice enough guy, you know. Like he seen, and his reaction was always pretty funny to the things. And he was also trying to counteract Trump being like, when somebody would do something in Trump's rally, he's like, "Kill him, do it, kill him, beat him up, guys, steal his coat."
Yeah,
He was trying to be like the reasonable one. I don't know if he'd be like that now, you know, but that always makes me laugh because DeVram is just so earnest. He's like, he's probably going to steal yours too. It always makes me laugh. I'm trying to think of other ones that like, Trump is boring is fun just because it was like kind of the one that like started all of these us bothering politicians.
But Trump's reaction
Politicians.
was great because, like, he started off like, "Hey, look at these guys," and then like a second later, he's like, "Throw them out."
we couldn't believe like we were just any chant we'd throw out there. It was like it was a thing in his brain. He had to like repeat it and say it with us. So we did that for a while. And then, like I said, we just actually got bored. But I loved Jason's speech last year at the NRA. That was like it was in Houston. Uvalde had just happened. It was so terrible, and it was so like tasteless that they were holding this convention, and Trump and Ted Cruz were speaking at it, and it was like 3 hours away, like 3 days later, and just like kind of the worst thing you could do. And vendors were pulling out and everything, but they like went ahead and did it. So I thought that speech was like an amazing time, and I think got more people's attention to like what a ridiculous organization and how none of these people are thinking. They're just so, stuck on their guns and their Second Amendment at all costs. And I thought that, tons and tons of people watched it. So I know, got people thinking.
One of my favorites, because it wasn't just comedic and it wasn't mocking. It actually made a real point, is Jews control everything. When you walked from off camera and you're like, hey, I'm a Jew and I control this park, you got to go. Like it was calling attention to the stupidity of this Jews control everything thing. And you were like, well, okay, if I control this park, get the fuck out,
Right.
And it was such a
Counterpoint, I would say maybe it proved the guy's point that Jews control everything because he got him out of the park. He listened to DeVram.
He didn't have to, though.
Jew, who does control everything.
He could have demanded to see the deed to the park, which he didn't.
But I was pulling enough strings that he had no choice. He had to just leave. But people have pointed out that, he started off by saying Jews own all the buildings in New York. He probably could have asked him about some of the ones that say Trump on them. But anyway.
Yeah. And then
somebody say that? That's funny.
Jason, when you were interviewing the guy who, slavery, good or bad, for or against, and you gave him like 1,000 opportunities to answer the question, and he just couldn't. It was funny, but it was really also terrifying, because you see in that moment, this man is, you're begging him to give you the right answer. And you say, this is not difficult. Slavery bad. Like, it's pretty much cut and dry. And he couldn't do it and wouldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. He knew what he was doing. And that was the scary part.
Yeah, that was at the NRA convention last year too. And he was like there, like kind of yelling stuff or looking at the counter protesters who like wanted gun control across the street. Yeah, it was very scary when that happens. I don't like confronting like the really ugly stuff. Like, it doesn't feel good, like, to know that this stuff is real and out there. Like in 2016, we went to an event that was called Gays for Trump at the RNC in Cleveland, and it was with Milo Yiannopoulos. I think that's his name. And I'd never heard of him, and he's the stuff, the like Islamophobic stuff he was saying, and he was saying stuff where I was like, oh my God, I'm at a hate event right now. This is insane, and it really makes me uncomfortable. Like, I don't, even thinking about it now, like your body gets like hot and you get, I don't know.
But I think as a fan of your work, there are people at home that do appreciate when that happens. I mean, it's a golden moment. Comedy sometimes really calls attention to the worst shit in America. And that's, I think, a testament to what you guys do, in addition to the ha-ha funny stuff. Another one I liked is the guy who, kitty litter, where he's like, he didn't see it himself. He heard it from someone who heard it from someone else. But like, it's so fascinating.
We got a couple of these kitty litter videos, actually. I don't know which one you're talking about specifically. Jason just talked to a guy who actually asked him to look it up. But Jason looked it up in front of him, which was pretty amazing. I talked to a guy who I kept saying, so you heard this? And he was like,
that guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I heard it from a friend who, okay, so your friend saw it? Well, no, he heard it from a kid who, it was like, over and over again.
Chris Farley and Billy Madison. It's like, but you could imagine what it'd be like.
You could imagine, yeah. But like saying with such assuredness, and then ending with like, the guy realizing kind of that he probably has never talked to anybody who has actually seen it happen.
Another one of my favorites is when you guys were telling Biden that his girlfriend broke up with him.
You could see why your wife left you. Beginning to see why your wife left.
The wife. Yeah, that was
funny
one
of those moments. Like you watch the debates, with him at this was like in the Democratic primaries because this is like how out of touch we were. We went to like a Trump rally in 2016 because we were like, we got to get him before he's out of the race. And then with Biden, we were like, we got to go do a thing with him early because he's probably going to drop out soon. And of course he wins. But we did that. And like before that, I was like, oh, is he losing it mentally? Like you watch him in some of these debates. And when I like interrupted him and he looked at me, I was like, this guy's with it. This guy.
Yeah.
And then he like had that burn and I was like, okay, all right.
He was quick.
He was quick.
Yeah.
He was quick there. It was a funny moment.
That
was another one of those where it was very awkward because we sat there for 2 hours beforehand and I was like talking to the people next to me and then all of a sudden I stand up in the middle of the rally.
I got to say, you guys, the balls that you have is admirable. I can't even imagine doing the shit you've done in a room full of people. Like, are you shaking on the inside when you do that, or are you just totally not self-conscious at all? Like, it's crazy that you have that kind of courage to do that stuff and take the consequences, whether it's getting arrested or people throwing you out or somebody maybe trying to hit you.
I don't know if you say balls. Like, it's balls. Is it lack of shame? I don't know. What is it?
Both.
A little bit of both. But I do feel like I guess in the recent ones that we've done that have been like that, like I have an Apple Watch now, and I could see, oh, my heart rate has gone up like 30 beats per minute before doing these things. Like, but we've done it. It's funny because we've done it, probably each of us at least like 25 times at this point, either together or separately. And it never gets easier. It really isn't, because like no situation is different. Like every situation is different. Mm-hmm. You not only have to think about your own safety, you have to think about the safety of everyone else there. You never want to do anything that's going to like put anyone in danger, even if you're at a place you don't agree with anyone, mm-hmm. blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. You don't, physical harm is like, that's just can't be part of the game. So it doesn't get any easier. It really doesn't. I don't know, Davram, if you have anything you want to add to that, but
No, I mean, and some of these, like, once we show up to a place, we know we're going to do it to some degree. So it's not like a should I or shouldn't I? It's just mm-hmm. like how and when. Mm-hmm. And we've had things that like don't work sometimes and that no one sees probably. So I think part of it is like we came all the way here. We're doing this thing. We waited here. We're at this place. We're in position to kind of do this thing. And there's like the added intensity is like, we just need to make sure it actually works too.
Right.
So there's some like creative, I don't know, butterflies, I guess. Mm-hmm. It's just like, is there a shot of me while I'm going to do this? And how's it going to work? And are we going to, do we have cameras where they need to be? And so it's all of it all at once. So I guess just to echo what Jason's saying, it doesn't get much easier, but there are a few factors mm-hmm. at play mm-hmm. other than just like, oh, it's someone going to punch me. Usually it's like all of it at once.
And you mentioned before Ted Cruz and being on stage. How do you get on stage with Ted Cruz? How does one get to stand next to Ted Cruz on stage?
Well,
a lot of things have to go wrong in your life.
A clipboard with a piece of paper on it, and just kind of like I'm supposed to be somewhere. It was how the entirety of the plan there. We were like, okay, let's try and do this, and just look like an average guy who might be there, might work on the campaign, point at the clipboard, and people stepped aside, and I walked on stage. And I don't know if things would be that way anymore. This is a few years mm-hmm. ago now. I think things might have changed a little bit. Still pretty intense there, and they were not happy.
That was your cool as a cucumber way of doing it. Davram did it, and I had spent the whole morning throwing up because I ate some bad food the night before. And then I saw him do that, and I was like, I should get on stage. And then I just like walked up to the stage and like got myself on and immediately was grabbed. It's like we're talking about the videos that don't make it out. Mm-hmm. Nothing funny happened there except for a guy grabbed my jacket that had puke on it. I guess I don't know. That might have been funny.
That's funny,
but it was yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
thanks, mate.
Yeah.
And also the like shooting with Rick Santorum, like he's standing next to you and you got a gun. Who lets that happen?
That was a total accident. I mean, when we were with this guy, Julio, who directed the movie, we were like, that was a first day shooting, like with him and with the crew in Iowa. And like we beat it out like the whole movie and like the interactions we want to get with each presidential candidate. And he was one of them. And originally it was just like, I was supposed to like go up to him and shake his hand and tell him something. And then I like knew they had to watch this video. So I just was like, we gotta watch this video. And then he thought we were in charge, I guess. And we like sat and talked with him the whole time. And then
it was the two of us, Rick and his daughter. And I think the people at the gun range quickly pulled us up a couple chairs for us, thinking that we were with him, but he thought we were with them.
That was the first time I'd ever shot a gun and like held a loaded weapon or anything like that. So I was really thinking like, don't drop this. Don't like shoot your leg or like have something terrible happen. And I remember thinking about turning, and I like remembered, I was like, make sure there's no bullets in this gun. And then I like turned around. I wasn't like trying to be like super reckless. I just didn't know how to be at a gun range. And he was.
It was a funny moment.
Had that little funny moment. Yeah.
So in our final minute or two here, I want to have a little lightning round fun. You guys ready for a little lightning round?
Whoa.
I guess we gotta be. I love lightning.
All right. Who's dumber, Eric Trump or Don Jr.?
Eric Trump.
Eric.
Who's crazier, George Santos or My Pillow guy?
My pillow guy.
Who's a shittier lawyer, Rudy or Sidney Powell?
Sydney, I would say.
Sidney Powell, yeah.
She also could have fit into the crazy category. Who's more corrupt, Trump or Steve Bannon?
Trump, yeah.
Who's a bigger coward, Ted Cruz or Lindsey Graham?
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
Interesting.
Well, are we not disagreeing on any of these?
We haven't, yeah.
Who's more evil, Matt Gaetz or Jim Jordan?
Matt Gaetz. Go.
I don't know. I'm going to punt on that one because I think both of them are just like opportunists and maybe that's an evil way of being. You're just an opportunist, but
You're going to punt on the lightning round?
yeah, I'm punting.
Yeah. That's so
Jim Jordan.
lame.
Jim Jordan.
Who's got a smaller penis, Trump or DeSantis?
I don't know. Are we talking length or girth or what altogether?
The full package. And I'm not asking out of personal experience, mind you. I just want to make that disclaimer. But
Okay, that's
just
fine.
assumptions,
Just like
what
who
you
do we-
assume.
Well, I'm just going to say the opposite of whatever Davram says.
Trump.
DeSantis.
Great.
You're a man of your word, Jason.
Yeah. Wow.
And last but not least, and this is a binary choice, guys. You have to answer. You have to pick one. Okay? You can't cop out. You can't say no comment. Who's hotter, Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene?
We have to say one.
Yeah, you have
Whoa,
to.
I feel like this is a trap question here.
This is why I said what I had to say up front. You have to pick one. You have to go there.
Frame it in the
No.
who is more
It's a
attractive,
simple
and
question. Who's hotter?
Just say who is more attractive, and I'll answer.
Nope.
That one.
Who's hotter? Hot is the key word here.
Hot, like okay, well, hot can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Hot can mean
more
like
hot
she's
to
got
try.
a worse temper.
Were you guys
Who I
lawyers
think
in a
has
prior
worse
life?
temper.
Like you're really evading the.
Marjorie Taylor Greene works out, and I think that's pretty cool. You know, she takes care of business very seriously.
You won't answer the question, will you? You just won't go there.
Okay, so since Davram said that, I'm going to do the political thing and answer the opposite, and I'll say Lauren Boebert just to even things out. So we're not just judging these women by their appearance.
Well done. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We're going to end on that note. For the listeners at home, I don't think we got the answer to that question, but I understand why. And I can't say I blame you guys. Thanks for being so generous with your time. This was a lot of fun. I hope you'll come back.
Yeah,
Sure
definitely. It was a lot of
thing.
fun.
This is great.
And keep making those videos. They're awesome.
All right, thanks, Ed.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
That's episode 66. If you like what you've been hearing, and even if you don't, let us know. We appreciate the feedback. You can leave us a message at 845-307-7446. Email us at backroomandy@gmail.com or tweet to me at Andy Ostroy. And when you listen, please take a quick moment to rate and review. It's very helpful. I want to thank my co-producer, engineer, and editor, Maddie Rosenberg, associate producer, Jen Hamoud, Cricket Langell for our artwork, Andy Hollander for our kick-ass music, Patricia Wind and the Epicurean for the Backroom Studio, and a big thank you again to our guests, the Good Liars, Jason Selvig and Davram Stiefler. So keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and we hope you'll join us again next time. Have a great week.